10 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. In Lincoln.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Oh, by the way, Rob, that's the guy you want to talk to right there.
We're getting there.
Great, thanks for coming, another Saturday. We have a couple of presentations today. I think the first one
Yeah,
is
we'll go first,
gonna
yeah.
be, yep. George is gonna do the first one, and then Charles is gonna be doing something afterwards. And hopefully he's gonna be talking about some of his CNC magic. But just a little bit, okay, well, that's better than none. Anyway, I think what we'll do is we'll get started with George and see how things move along.
So a couple of years ago, maybe longer, I was working on a horizontal mortiser and using my 3D printer to try to make some pieces for it. And then I got together with Bob. Hang on now, I'm introducing the wrong one. Okay, scratch that. So Bazz can't attend because he spends time in Florida. And so just earlier this week, he left for Florida. But he sent some pictures.
Does everybody know who Bazz is?
No.
Bazz is an amazing chip carver. He actually has done covers for the Lee Valley catalog.
Yeah, and he teaches here from time to time. So Bazz sent some pictures, and here's him showing a bit of a harvest of willow that he got his hands on recently. Now this is before he left for Florida.
Don't believe it, there's no.
Here's a bit of a close-up of his bounty. And here's the wood miser doing what it does. I don't think it's his miser, no. Maybe it is, but I don't think so. Does anyone know whether he has one? He also is working on a campaign chest. And campaign refers to, this one here refers to the American Civil War. So campaign furniture is furniture that you take with you to war. So he's working on this, or at least this photo is from when he was working on this for his son-in-law. A little bit more progress. Here's the front getting ready to be installed. There's what it looks like from the front. Another shot of the front from a different angle. And that's the back of it. So that's what Bazz had to send us by way of communication. Now, Bob, the turner, he and I collaborated on a modification of that horizontal mortiser. I added a couple of pieces to it so that he could hold it up and then use it in conjunction with his lathe. So we rigged it so that he could get it at the level of his indexing thing. I don't know much about lathes, but there's an index.
That's the technical term.
Yeah, and we put some tracks on it so that the router could sweep an arc if he wanted that. And so he sent me a couple of pictures and he says, well, look at what, you know, I was able to do with your contraption. So this is the Jetsons bowl. So it's a bowl within a bowl, embellished by router and epoxy. So the wood bowl slash box is maple from a crotch, and the legs and top are roasted ash. 9 3/4 wide by 7 inches high. 4 coats of tried and true, and then buffed with, now do you pronounce it Beal or Beal?
Beal.
Beal, yeah, buffing system.
What is that?
Oh, jeez. So now here's one that really shows off the router's work, because you've got the channels that go underneath all around in circles and the cuts radially into the bowl. This one he calls router embellished bowl, maple, 9 inches by 1 3/4 inches high, finished with mineral oil and beeswax, buffed with Beal buffing system. Just amazing work. So this he calls bowl within a bowl. The bowl is cedar and the base is roasted ash, 8 inches across, 5.5 inches in height. And this is 4 coats of tried and true, buffed with the Beal buffing system. And then he says the next two are more artsy.
More earthy, really. I wouldn't have guessed.
The man has design in his DNA. So this is a wooden spin art, a wide-brimmed platter, maple, 16 inches across, 1.5 inches high. And the finish is black lacquer spray paint, acrylic paints, 4 coats of spray lacquer, and the center bowl is mineral oil and beeswax, buffed with the Beal buffing system. And here's the last of the creations that he sent me.
Oh my God.
Again, spin art, 9 inches across, 1.5 inches high, 3 inches diameter, the central bowl. And the finish is black lacquer spray paint, acrylic paints, 4 coats of spray lacquer, and the center bowl is mineral oil and beeswax. Again, the Beal buffing system. So yeah, so that's the dispatches from Bazz and from...
No, George, come on. You can't just show us this stuff and say, oh, we hooked up a horizontal mortiser to the... and not show us the setup. How do you do this? I mean, at least a picture.
Well, I'll tell you, next month I can bring in the mortiser.
Yeah.
But not with the elaborations that he has for his arrangement. So he put it up on a stand so that it addressed the lathe at the right height, and so that it could index. So maybe he can send us some pictures of
That's
that.
interesting. I'm imagining it because I have a horizontal mortiser built from the Inca side mortising contraption that went on an Inca table saw. It's a 3-axis thing, right?
Huh.
And it's mounted in a frame that I got, the plan for which I got from a guy in LA, and there's a quarter cable 690 on the end of it. It's mounted permanently to it. And I can see that quite easily mounting on the ways, on the bed of the lathe. Exactly. You just take this off, right?
Take the banjo off.
Take this off, and mount it right there by whatever means, and then you've got all your adjustability.
Yeah,
You'd have to figure out a way maybe to change the adjustability of the router.
Yeah.
You'd have to
It's
maybe
like a router lift you put in.
figure out a way to make it do this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like a pin here and a router here, so it does this.
And then you've got an indexer on the router itself.
The router,
Well,
well, no,
there's an index.
the lathe has an
Yeah,
index,
Yeah.
right?
Your lathe would have to be turning.
What's that?
Your lathe would have to be turning.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Everybody wanna buy a lathe?
I miss his not being able to be here.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah. Oh, I would love to see how these came out. Let's
so
just...
maybe what we can do
Just zoom them.
is for the next meeting, maybe we could get him to do a little presentation at his place and we'll just video it. and play it.
Oh, that's an idea.
Yeah.
Will they still get it for it?
No, this is
This is for
Bob
for
Testa.
Testa.
Oh, that's right,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, perfect.
So, can anybody enlighten me, what's the Beal buffing system?
Oh, it's, do you want to talk about it or do you want me to do it?
Go ahead.
Okay, it's basically, like buffing wheels that actually go on a lathe, and there's three of them, I believe.
Yeah.
And they use different polishing, like different waxes on them, and you basically just polish. That's all it is.
High-speed polishing
High-speed polishing on with the
with
lathe.
progressively harder wax.
CNC stuff?
Just for the inside of bowls then?
You can use
You
it
use it for anything.
Use it for anything.
I use it in drill press.
Okay, PowerPoint came up.
I used to mount the mop in the drill press.
Yeah,
I polish boxes that way.
yeah.
And guess what, he now sells it.
We just bought the company.
All right. Yeah, I know, I keep ragging on, yeah, I got a CNC. And I actually used it for this project, but I think what I want to stress in this presentation is that just the idea of you can do a large project, you know, like with large numbers or something really big or whatever in a shop. Doesn't matter what size it is or what tools you have. I'm always like, you know, trying different tools. Sometimes I try different setups to do a specific operation and wind up settling on, you know, one of 3 different alternatives and the like. So whether you do it with hand tools or in your basement or, you know, if you've got a shop this size or whatever. My shop, I call it small. It's 12.5 feet wide by 27 feet long. I know some people would go, wow, but yeah, it is small by most standards, you know. So I managed to fit a whole bunch of stuff. I've done all kinds of projects. I've made 32 shelves, cabinets, boxes, and everything else in 6 different kinds of wood at the same time in the shop. That was coming up with room for things and moving things.
Did you say you only
through.
have 6 different kinds of wood in your shop?
No, I had 6 different kinds of wood that I used to make all those cabinets. So anyways, this one, this particular one that I was doing, let me see, where's my, what happens if I do that? Nothing.
Just
I do that. There we go. Okay. This here project was 160 boxes, like this. So,
For whiskey?
for whiskey, yeah. Before, I was making boxes for, you know, like at-home tastings. So we would ship out a box and everything else, and each one had 6 samples in it. And that was what got us through the pandemic. And I wound up making 2,500 of those little boxes. And that was what led me to get a CNC, because I got fed up with making, you know, like bajillions of little holes to put the bottles into. We decided that we were going to do the same thing, but much less frequently. We were only going to make 160, and just kind of as a Christmas holiday type thing. So, and we decided to up the stakes, so we put in 12 bottles. And somehow or other, I decided that what I wanted to do, instead of just making the same little box that I'd made before, but making it longer for 12, I wanted to make like a plinth, a display. So my initial one that I made at first was a box this same size, same proportions, but the lid up here had 12 holes in it, the same size as these bottles, and you would just drop it over the top, and that would hold everything in place, right? And it worked beautifully the first time I did it. Dunk. And my mother-in-law came over and she went, "Oh, this is really nice, I like this," and she tried to put the lid back on, and it would not go. It was just like bang, bang, bang. If one of these is even slightly out of alignment, it just won't close. And I was like, it doesn't work. So I started, you know, what am I gonna do? So I thought, well, what happens if I hinge it? But then you gotta hinge it, so I hinged it like dead center in the middle, so when it folds open, it sits on the table. So I don't need a support or a chain or anything like that for the hinge, otherwise it constantly tries to rip itself out. And then in the front, I tried to make it as low as possible, but still have room to put the clasp on. So now you've got this nice decorative plinth and everything else, everything's all arranged. And then just to make sure the bottles don't shake around and everything, I put a spongy top that kind of compresses everything in place, which, believe it or not, yoga mat. Worked great, yoga mat, and then I just bought some festive looking fabric, glued it on. Did this like the whole yoga mat, spray stick, you know, like 3M spray stick, photo stick, whatever. Put the fabric over it, and then someone told me about, this was the coolest thing, a rotary cutter for fabric.
Quilters use it.
Wow! I was like, you know, this is great! You know? It was like, yeah, and they came out identical and everything else, you know, so there we go. That was cool. Anyways, so that wound up being the design of the box. Like, that was the purpose of it, was that they wouldn't rattle or shake or get damaged or anything like that in transit. So, having designed the box and everything else, then what I did was, the first thing I did was I took 160 boxes, so 320 pieces, tops, bottoms. Tops and bottoms were identical. So what I did was I took maple boards, a bunch of them, and cut up 110 of them to 32 inches long and 3 inches wide. Passed them through the planer to come up with 3/4 of an inch thick, and then set up a sacrificial board on the CNC with little stops so that I could put 6 of those boards down, and along this edge here is like a fence, so I would just put them up against it, nail them down in place, and you'll see these little divots there. That's so that when the boards are nailed in place, after I finished machining them, I just take a pry bar, which you'll see the tip of it there, and pop it back off again, because otherwise I can't get under the board to pry it off, right? So yeah, that worked pretty well. Let me see now.
Charles, when you say nails, you mean steel nails, not plastic nails.
Right there, steel nails.
Okay.
So I just used my air gun. Each one of the boards was, you can see it backed up against the stops there. And then each one of the boards, I pre-cut them on the table saw with a dado blade, just like a 1/16 of an inch short of the depth and a 1/16 of an inch bigger than what I wanted to wind up with. Because I took a look at the programming of the CNC, and if I was going to wait for the CNC to one pass at a time, a 1/16 of an inch at each one, to go all the way down the full width and the full depth, I was going to be here forever. I was going to be past Christmas just waiting for it to finish doing this. So I pre-did just within a hair's width on each one, and then just programmed the computer to go in one pass. And that made it really good. And then here we are. I just set it up. The way I programmed it was I completely ignored the fact that each one of these was a separate component, and just had the CNC race right across, completely ignoring the fact that each one was an individual piece. The reason for that is because, once again, for speed, one of the slowest things on a CNC is like it'll go at the depth you want, and then when it goes to the next component, it'll come up, go over there, go back down to the proper depth, and then move again. Well, that up-down motion is slow, right? But it'll go like the blazes right across. So I just ignored the up-down part and just went, do it, right through.
Is there any issue with tear out then on the back side of the cut?
That was why what I did was I programmed it first to do the across the grain all by itself, and then a separate program afterwards to trim off the width with the grain.
Gotcha.
Because that way, if I did get any tear out, I
Just like
was,
you
I
would
was
do
already
it.
eliminating
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Although actually in the end it wound up, there was hardly any. It was negligible, so it wasn't really a problem.
Is there a max depth that I can handle at once?
Sorry?
The depth at once, like how many passes does it take to go? a certain depth?
Usually the recommended depth for this particular trimmer, because it's really small and the bit and everything else, is about 1/8 of an inch per pass.
Okay.
So I'm going down, you know, like 3/8 of an inch in depth, so I didn't really feel like doing it that often. So that's why everything was like to within a 1/16 and I just set the final depth and go.
It's a router bit that you have in that?
Yeah, it's actually a spiral down bit, which I found is really good because it helps hold the piece down as it's going instead of trying to pull it up, and also it doesn't raise grain on the edges, you know, like pick up some of the grain and tear it out. So yeah, it was really nice. The other nice thing about this is, man, using, I don't know about most CNCs, but this one, I mean, afterwards I'm prying pieces off and I'm taking my digital calipers and I'm going 0003, 0003, 0003, every single piece identical to 4 zeros. It was like, you know, anyways. This year, and once again, I've got a bajillion photographs, and then I don't have photographs of some other things. So what I did was took 110 pieces of wood and took a look at each one, the ones that were nice on top, on the side that's not rabbited. Those ones went for lasering. The ones that were nice on the bottom, in other words, the part that I rabbited, those ones went and they got holes drilled in them. And I don't have any shots of my having done holes in them, but that's one of the pieces there. And that's what I came up with.
Sorry, were there holes on the CNC as well, or did you use?
Yeah, the bottom pieces, this is a bottom piece, are exactly the same. They went through the same operation as the ones that went off for lasering, the tops. But then I also did another program that drilled all the holes. There were two reasons I wanted the CNC to do all the holes. One, I'm so fed up with drill pressing a bajillion holes. And the other thing is, when you use a Forstner bit to drill the hole, you always wind up with a little divot in the center for where the locating pin is. And I didn't want that. In the end, I wound up with like just a slight little scorch mark in the middle because it would go and then sit in the middle for that long, and it would just leave, not on all of them, but on some of them. So I was kind of,
You still had that up and down motion to slow you up there?
Yeah, this operation took a lot longer than the other one. Also because this did have to go like down an eighth, down an eighth, down an eighth for each series. So yeah.
Okay, so you didn't use a spiral down?
No, I didn't use a spiral down. I tried using a spiral down at first, and that slowed it down to almost another half again in speed. So I just eliminated that, and it didn't seem to affect it at
You
all.
just use a full-size bit.
Sorry?
A full-size bit.
No. It's a quarter bit.
Oh, I
Goes
see.
out and it scribes the outside and then
Then works its way in.
and works its way in. Yeah.
Did you have to clean them up at all afterwards, or was it good enough?
This has not been touched.
Okay.
That's right off the machine.
Can you pass it around?
Yeah.
Sure.
What do you mean by quarter bit?
It's a
I'm thinking
quarter inch
bit.
diameter up or down spiral bit. So it's like the spiral pushes down or presses down. So you get a nice clean edge like that. You know, it's like.
Oh, and then it's just going around.
And then it's just it just literally goes in and.
Okay.
Charles,
Yes.
I'm having a little hard time trying to figure out, okay, how many holes is in that?
12.
How long did it take to do that 112 segment board?
Let me see, well, what do I wind up taking? Wound up taking 35 minutes to do the entire like 3 times 6, 24 pieces.
24, this is the whole operation?
Sorry?
The drilling of the holes
That's the
operation?
holes, the
35
whole
minutes?
operation took 35 minutes. Yeah, it was
So
really fast.
35 Go again, say that again, please.
So the program to get it to drill the holes and everything else took 35 minutes.
On one piece.
No.
No.
24 pieces.
all of them, really?
24
Yeah,
pieces.
6 pieces.
Wow.
So 24 sets of, no, wait a minute, sorry, not 35, an hour and 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But still,
Yeah.
yeah,
So for 24 pieces.
for 24 pieces, yeah.
Holy shit.
I thought
Five-
you put it
so
on
5
bedtime and
minutes-
go back in the
5
morning
minutes,
and
yeah,
look
that's
at
what I was
it.
Yeah, about that.
Well, that's fast, eh?
Yeah.
Faster than doing it on the drill press
Yeah, you couldn't.
Oh, yeah,
you couldn't
yeah,
do
yeah.
that.
And much less tiring. Yeah.
and more accurate.
No.
Yeah,
not even close.
there's a bunch of things that I love about the CNC and everything else, you know. Then there's some things I don't. There's something about operating a machine when it's making noise, that it's almost like you brace yourself, you know, and it's only on, you have control over the sound. But when a CNC is going, it's just making a howling noise the whole time, and you have no, you know, you're just standing there in a room. It's kind of, you know, I don't know.
But for repetitive work, man.
Oh, yeah. No, it's unbeatable.
This is
When
the
I-
kind of
when
stuff
I
they used
first-
to pay apprentices for when Gary was a boy, right?
When I first got the
How
machine,
long
my
ago was
intention,
that?
my
Well, they were still-
intention was
They were
I was
barely
going
using power
to,
tools, I think they were belt bend.
yeah, my first intention was I was going to design all the boxes on the computer and just lay a piece of plywood on the machine and press go, and it would cut out all the pieces for me, and all I had to do was assemble them. But the problem with a CNC is you need something to hold everything down. And if you cut a piece out of a piece of plywood, you need little tabs to hold it in place. Otherwise, when you hit the end, ding, and
Can
it
you
goes
use vacuum
flying.
to suck them down?
You could, but I don't have enough power.
What about double-sided tape?
Sorry?
Double-sided tape.
Double-sided tape works as well, but then you've got the problem prying the
That's a-
double-sided
that's a slow
pieces up
process.
and everything. Everything just, you know, it's like breaking everything down, it winds up, it's
There
like,
was a guy who used to be a member of the club once upon a time.
hmm,
Forget his name now. I bought his two-horse dust collector when he got out of kitchen cabinets.
hmm.
But he was set up such that, and this was an early CNC, because that's going back 12 years or more.
Mhm.
And he had 4 fine vacuums, that's FEIN vacuums.
Yeah.
Each one doing a quadrant of his 4x8 table,
Wow.
right?
Yeah,
So, you know, and he was working out of his garage. But
yeah.
he had the power quietest vacuums around.
There's that
you know,
too.
they're on.
But one of my big problems is, you know, I have this wonderful small shop, big shop, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, my disadvantage is I have one power source. I have a single extension cord coming out of my apartment into my shop, and that powers everything. So there's just no way, you know, like people always say, you know, it's like you got a CNC, while it's working, you can be doing, I can't do a thing.
One thing at a
I
time.
can't turn another light bulb on, you know, I can't do nothing. It's like, whoop, that's it.
Get a
So
second extension.
what feed rate did you end up using on this?
Sorry?
Because you and I talked about feed rate, what feed rate did you use for the holes?
I set it up to the same you said, I can't remember what it was, 180?
180.
Yeah,
Okay, so you used the high feed rate,
yeah, yeah.
'cause that's an amazingly fast drill. So-
Oh, yeah, no, I was like,
Yeah, that's just straight off the machine.
yeah, that's untouched, hasn't been sanded, hasn't been anything.
No, the key to it is used it down, it's fine.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why maple?
Why maple? Truthfully, maple because the sides of the boxes are Baltic birch, and I didn't feel like using birch, so I just used the closest matching wood, which to my mind was maple. If I'd had my way, what I would have done was I would have used 1/4-inch oak and made an oak top, because just oak is more whiskey-ish, you know, but I didn't have that opportunity or anything like that, and I had Baltic birch 1/4-inch in stock.
Oh, you're reminding me, it just, and I want to say it now because I'll forget it. When I do, for example, a small box
Mhm.
out of cherry, and I want a plywood bottom for the box because I don't have any wood movement issues,
Yeah,
I use thin plywood and I veneer veneer
Mhm.
both sides of the plywood.
yeah,
So now I've got cherry plywood,
yeah,
right? And then I glue it on flat, put a little rabbet in the side, glue on some solid cherry box, plywood bottom.
yeah. Would you want to do that 160 times?
No. Do it with a full
Okay.
sheet of plywood.
Yeah,
Or some portion of a sheet of plywood. right?
yeah,
You can buy cherry plywood.
And you can buy cherry.
yeah,
plywood.
you can buy
They're
cherry
all
plywood,
thin
yeah.
sizes.
True,
yeah.
yeah.
Anyways, so, next thing I did was I cut the sides out of 1/4 inch Baltic birch. Cut them all in long strips and everything else, threw them onto my, my miter saw, set up a fence, nice brand new blade and everything else, so everything came out really nice. I find that's pretty deadly accurate. The problem is, you know, after looking at the beauty of the CNC and how incredibly accurate it was, to cut a sheet of 1/4 inch plywood on the table saw and finish, and at the end, you know, I'm taking my digital calipers and I'm going along, and it's like 3 1/8, 3 3/16, 3 and, you know, it was like, yeah, it was like, okay, anyways. So I cut all the pieces, and then I set up my table saw with a dado blade, got everything bang on, and cut the rabbets for the sides here, like that, and just cut them. And as hard as I tried, you've literally got to stand over it, put your hand right over it, and shove the thing through and come back, because sometimes the rabbets don't come out the same depth right across, like it'll start out the proper depth, and then, so it was like, I can't be assembling boxes like that.
You can't attach a feather board to your fence to hold it down.
Well,
when you
if
put it through?
if I attached a feather board to the fence and everything else, as you can see, my miter only goes so far, A and B, then I would have trouble, because what I always do is I always do 2 passes. I go forward and then pull it back, right? And you can't pull it back with a feather board, so.
Oh, use a rubber grout float press on.
Not a bad idea, yeah. I'll- Next time. So anyways, yeah, so that was that setup. And then, where do we go? This is what, this is what you wind up with.
Yeah.
It's like IKEA.
It is, okay? Now, okay, that's just the final of that and everything. You wind up with stacks and stacks of wood, and then you set everything up and you start assembling. You see my glue bottle, and blue tape is your friend. Blue tape. This is, all of the tops were sent out and got lasered with that logo.
Where'd you send them to, Charlie?
Urban Workshop.
Yeah.
Greg
Greg.
Anderson. Anyways, so what I decided was I wanted the tops lasered first. We were discussing whether to assemble the boxes, make them all and everything else, and then laser them, or laser it first and then assemble the box. I decided to laser it first, just because. So what he wound up doing was registering where it goes from the land. This is what I call the land inside, this raised portion. So what he did was he just cut out this shape and everything else on a 1/8 inch board, and then you would just place all of these like that. Because otherwise this would wind up slightly off center or anything if he was going by the outside edge, because I made all of these oversized by a 1/16 on all dimensions. Okay, I'll get to why.
So, I don't see any burn marks in the lettering,
You don't see any burn marks?
in the lettering from the laser.
Yeah, you don't see it now.
Oh, okay.
I'll get into that as well. Actually, if you look up here, I don't know if you can really see it, but yeah, there's burn marks on that piece sitting there. It's not very clear, but anyways, blue tape is what I use to hold everything together. Like I would glue up the whole, you know, I had a whole routine and everything else, glue the whole thing up and everything else, tape it all together. One thing I can tell you is when you're doing a prodigious amount like that, I went through 8 rolls of this. A really good idea is to lightly sand the inner edge like this, because if you don't, that edge is sharp, and you know, by the time you're doing your 100th box or something like that, your hands are going to look really, really like just, you know, yeah. pretty bad. So, this is me assembling boxes at a prodigious rate. One thing I can say is, when you're assembling boxes like this and everything, or any project like this, is be comfortable, you know. So you'll see I've put something to sit my feet on to give me a bit of support and everything else. I have a really comfortable shop bench, which I think I featured years ago here. So that folds up so it doesn't take up any room. You know, and I just, you know, it's at a comfortable height. I specifically made it for work like this at this bench. This is my my workbench out feed table from my table saw, assembly bench, everything all in one. Yeah, and you can see here the overburn. So this is what they wind up looking like. They all get taped up together and everything else. This is about halfway through. These pieces have already been assembled and then the tape all torn off of them and everything else. Wind up filling up about half of my my garbage pail when you're doing it. And then everything moves down and you assemble more and everything else and stack them up higher and higher. And you can see on the edges of the box where these sides are sticking out over by a 1/16, at least a bit. Here's still more. So in order to trim off the edges, the overhang, I set up the table saw like this. I think, who was it? Someone else was showing this technique the other day. So it's like, but I set it up so it's like one pass and it's done. Like, that's it. And I love this system. It works really, really well. So what I tried initially was I tried it on my router table. I set up my router table, put a bit in it, everything else, set the height, yada yada, plugged in my vacuum cleaner, took it and passed it over, and I'm busy watching it, and all I'm seeing is zing as it tears off a strip and rips it all to, you know. So it's like, that's not gonna work. What if I do a climb cut? So I took it and I went the other way.
Oh, yeah.
The box went flying across the shop, so that doesn't work. So that's when I said, no, I'm going with this. So, and this was like, done. One of the things I want to...
Sacrificial fence that you'd exposed a 1/16 of the blade and brought the blade up through the sacrificial fence and then ran the piece across it?
Almost.
No, this is like the fence is actually raised up maybe even a 1/16 of an inch higher than the thickness of the wood, right? So it's just shy of it, and then I set the blade, so the blade is dead parallel to this face.
It cuts what it sees.
So it cuts what it sees. So
you
there's
got
two
relief at the top.
advantages to this. When you're doing a bajillion things and everything else, repetition is your enemy. When you do something constantly, continuously, you get into a zone. Yeah, and you stop paying attention. And it's like the weirdest things can happen, even out of the most safest operations you're doing. Like the blade's completely buried. Not gonna get you, right? You'll find a way if you get into that zone, right? So anyways, but other than that, this works really, really well.
So you've elevated the
This is just like a.
you've elevated the fence.
Yeah,
It's two-part fence.
yeah,
Two-part fence.
Yeah, sort of like an L fence.
yeah,
It is
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
a-
It's the same principle as the old fence.
Exactly.
Yeah, which I really like. That's a cool operation. Now I've assembled all the boxes. I've trimmed all the edges and everything else. So now it's time to sand. And the first one I tried to sand took forever if I just used the random orbit sander. So I hooked up my belt sander, and of course, boom, as soon as you set it, whoosh, where'd that go? So I had to set up a kind of jig to hold the boxes in place.
There's no witnesses until today. That's good knowledge.
So I made this little jig like this, and it actually worked quite well. Although even the one where standing up on its end, I initially designed that with the intention of using the belt sander, but it just would not. It chattered so much and everything else. It was like, ah, screw it. For just the ends, I used the random orbit, and that worked out well. This produced a prodigious amount of sand, sanding dust and everything else, and you know, there's really not much I have in my shop that I can do about it. So I've got an overhead air cleaner, like one of these. So I ran it continuously. I have a fan. I had the fan blowing stuff away, and I have a visor with a filter on the top that runs, and that was it. Although I hate it. I mean, it's like, you know, you use it for about 10 minutes, and then the dust just kind of electrostatically clings to it. You know, so you got to constantly clean it off and everything else. But it's that, or breathe all that stuff. So you work with what you got. So anyways, and this is where the planing marks, laser overscorch, and slightly off cut marks on the edges all got sanded smooth and everything else. And this is what it winds up looking like. Here's a whole bunch of boxes, sanded, ready to go.
How do you ensure that you're taking just the right amount off, that all the boxes are identical? I mean, you leave it on your belt sander for 2 seconds longer, and your depth is, and you're taking.
Well, I'm only using 120. So 120 was just the right grit to get stuff off, leave a smooth finish, and but not so aggressive. Like if I'd used 100 even, it probably would have like chewed off half the lasering letters, you know. Even though they're almost about a 1/16 of an inch deep, so it's like there's you know, it's pretty good. Yeah.
More to the point, I doubt they need to be that perfect anyway.
No.
No,
Once you're at this stage, I mean, a variation of a 64th of an inch or something in length.
No. I wasn't concerned about the overall dimensions of the box, especially the outside dimensions of the
Yeah.
box. That wasn't even part of a problem, right? So yeah. So anyways, yeah. And once again, bragging on my shop stool.
Did you make that? Did you get it?
Yeah, I made that.
That looks great.
Tractor seat.
Okay, so this is just a close-up shot of my sanding setup and everything else. Then the boxes had to be cut. Now my first initial cut, I took one of the boxes, went zzz, I set the angle and everything else, got everything perfect, and passed it through, and that thingamajiggy right there is aluminum, and this is an aluminum stretch. And what happened was both of them, it's like, you ever see those permanent pencils?
Yeah.
This piece of aluminum more or less, and it leaves a gray streak. Yeah, well, that's what it did to my box. So I was like, oh man, I am not going through this. You know, so I put packing tape across everything. And it was like, beautiful. Not only did it stop that, but it was like slick. It was really nice. So each box just went flying through. Boxes were all stacked so that the tops and bottoms were still matched up together. Here's still more of them stacked up together.
Do you think there's any way you could automate that as well, Charles?
What's that?
With a super thin bit, that cut in the box like that?
At an angle like that?
Yeah,
You mean on the CNC?
yeah.
I
It'd be pretty insane, I think, to try to set something.
I think, well, you know, then once again, you've got the same problem, right? How do you hold it down and hold everything in place while it's being cut,
Yeah.
and then 160 times?
Right.
It's like, you know, a lot of times, you know, it's like, just because you have a hammer, the answer isn't always a hammer, you know? Sometimes it's a brick. I mean, I don't know, right? But yeah, the CNC, you can do all kinds of things with the CNC that are like mind-boggling, but sometimes it's like, I better just you know, whip out a handsaw, you know?
And the CNC, it only works down, right? Like there's no side axis or anything like that?
Not on mine, no. You can get machines that
Sure,
are
yeah.
like
We,
4, 5, 6 axis machines,
yeah.
you know, would be nice.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I've got enough problems just programming the one I've got, you know, it's,
So we got the one.
Maybe a real retirement club,
okay, so this is, after the boxes are all cut at an angle and everything else, I went through each one of them. The inside of each box had to be sanded because the bandsaw leaves a kind of rough, you know. So I just sanded them all off and then taped the boxes together. You'll see why they get taped like that in a mow. This is me sanding them. This is my lucky sanding block. That block, I've had that for more than 40 years now. And you can see it actually got broken once, so I taped it up back together again. So it's like, you know, I don't know, do you ever get that? You've got something that it just works, it's just the right size, and you don't even wanna, you know, I don't even wanna try, like I could make another one exactly the same dimensions and it just wouldn't be the same, you know? So, I don't know. Anyway, so that's sanding the inside edges and then taping them all together. And now what I'm doing is taping the hinges to the back of the box. So what I'm doing is I measure with this where it is, so I get it dead center, and then I line it up exactly on the line and tape it in place.
Can you not make a jig for that?
Yeah,
To get it dead center and the right location.
yeah, you'd think, I don't know, I'm thinking as fast as I can on my feet kind of thing, and this was what I came up with, was this to give me this measure, which is exactly the same, doesn't matter which way the box is facing, and then just eyeballing it to make sure it's on here. The thing about eyeballing it is you have to be bang on, because if you're even a 1/16 of an inch off on that edge, because it opens, it doubles that, so that 1/16 off becomes an 1/8 of an inch, and the box is kind of, yeah.
Did you have any casualties for that, or?
I had 1 or 2, but I just, what I wound up doing was if they wound up and I messed up or the tape didn't hold well enough or something like that, I would, the 2 or 3 that happened on, I just unscrewed them, moved the hinge over 1/4 of an inch, who's gonna notice, made sure it was centered this time, re-drilled them, put in new screws.
Are you talking about those crappy brass screws that come with the hinges?
No, these hinges did not come with screws at all, period. And we're gonna get into screws in a mo. Okay, here we go. This is the jig, however, I did come up with for the clasps. Okay, so it's just some pieces of MDF and slapped them together and everything else. Measured exactly where the holes go and everything, and pre-drilled them. And I was amazed, actually, surprisingly enough, it lasted 160 goes, and I was worried it was going to wear out and I was going to have to make another one, but no, it worked fine. The other thing that really surprised me, well, 2 things that surprised me. One of them was, see that little itty bitty bit? I went, what is that, a 3/64 bit. I went and bought 5 of them, because look at that, it's gonna break, right? Lasted the whole project.
No, well.
So I got 4.
That's because you had 5 of them, if you'd only had
Exactly,
one.
oh, exactly, right?
Don't ask me how I know that.
Golf, right?
Yeah, that was A. B, that drill is also about 40 years old. And the reason I'm using that with a cord on it and everything else is not because, hey, I'm old school, but because that drill bit would literally not fit into either of my new battery-powered drills. Like, they won't close down small enough to hold it. I was like, what? what is this? So anyways, so I pulled out my old one and, you know, nice old ancient Jacob's chuck, you know?
I just wrapped the tiny bit with duct tape.
There's a small chuck you can get, I don't know if we still sell it, that you can put into.
That you can put into that chuck and it'll,
For doing micro. bits.
yeah,
We had, I know we had them one time, like $9 or $10.
yeah. Just when I need more stuff.
I have 10 of them.
So, there's that. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this, and you tend to forget them, is like, you know, when you pick up an electric drill nowadays, you know, you go, bzzz, and you don't give it a second thought, right? I picked up this thing, and my wife was in the shop with me, and I go, and she's like, what? And she's just flipping out, and I'm there, what? She goes, that is a little loud, don't you think? And I was like, yeah, I guess I just didn't even think of it, but that thing howls. So it was like, yeah, okay, headphones on, you know, everybody, I'm starting drilling.
You know you need a new drill when.
Yeah, probably.
The correct response for that is what?
What? No, you can only get away with that one so much. Anyways, so this is my setup for screwing. Okay. Up here you see these are the bottoms. These are the tops of the clasps. There. This is set up like that because once the hinges are screwed into the back of the box, I didn't want to put it down and have it rock back and forth as I'm trying to screw things in. So the hinge sits there and the box sits nice and flat. This is a little mortar and pestle I've got to hold all the #1 brass slot head 1/4 inch screws. 1,600 of them. Okay, now the answer to this is, wow, should have used Robertsons, but that's not, I couldn't find them. I don't even know if they exist, in brass at least. Yeah?
They do?
Okay, anyways, I couldn't find them, and you know, it's kind of like, yeah, get to it. So here we are there. I perfected a technique of picking up a single screw, putting the screwdriver into it, sliding my finger along, taking my fingernail, holding it into it, and then because they're brass, they're very soft. So if you just go and screw it in, just the tension on the hole will snap it. 1 out of 3 will break every time, and you've got to pull all the ones you've done, move the thing to one side, re-drill all the way. I'm not doing that. So Vaseline, and you go, put it into it, just a little dot of Vaseline on the end of it, hold it like this, and then you kind of take your left hand and kind of underneath and turn the screwdriver. And these screws were actually pretty nice. If you could get at least 1/4 of a turn in, it was set, and just, and you can screw it in place. But you do that 1,600 times. Yeah. So, what else have we got? Here we are back again. That's just a close-up shot of the same stuff and everything. This is what I was using this is the setup. I guess we're going back again, but this is the setup I was using to place the hinges and everything. And the hinges had to be pre-punched each one of the holes, because there is no way you're going to hit dead center with a drill with your bit. It's going to wander off or something like that unless you direct it. So each one of them has to be center punched. And of course, using a center punch and a hammer wasn't going to work very well, so I used my automatic punch. Once again, thousands of times of doing that, you want to wear a glove. It's just, yeah. Still more pictures. This is a close-up picture. Once again, seat. And there we go. Finally, you screw everything together, and this is what you wind up with. Looks like this. Now you'll notice some of these boxes, this box has a finish on it. Some of these boxes do not. The reason for that is because back before I was finishing the boxes, and I got through about half of them. The finish I was using was Levos. So what I would do is take the Levos, dip a paintbrush, brush the whole box in Levos and everything else, and put it to one side. And Levos is like 15 to 20 minutes. It kind of sets up like a thick wax, and you have to rub it off, right? So what I would do is I was able to do 10 boxes in 15 minutes, and then I would take the next 20 minutes, going back to the first box, wiping it down and everything else, and be finished the last box at the 20-minute mark. It worked pretty well, but I totally ran out of time. There was just no way. I got to the halfway point, and my wife came down and went, we gotta start filling boxes, you know, just, they look pretty nice without a finish even, you know, so I was like, okay, fine.
But if you were going to finish those, why not finish them before you cut them? I mean, then they're
No, that's when I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's, you know, sort of skip that part.
Right.
Anyways, this is the end right there. So, let me see, what have I got?
Well, we talked about the lettering and the burning and how you dealt with it. I know you mentioned the sanding. Is that where you addressed, where you had some burning in the lettering itself, or?
No, sometimes when you're laser, depending on the strength of it and how long you laser and everything else, you'll get overburn, like you get the,
Beyond the lettering.
beyond the
How
lettering,
come
like
there
it's,
was no burn in the lettering?
sorry?
There was no burning in the, or very little burning in the lettering.
That's one of the beauties of a CO2 laser,
Okay.
is like, you know, at 80 watts or whatever it is, the one he's got.
And a guy has been doing it for 10 years.
Yeah, that too, you know, it's like, you can cut or engrave or stuff like that, and it hardly does it all. It also depends on the wood. If you've got a wood with a lot of sugar in it,
Yeah.
like cherry or maple for that matter, really, it tends to caramelize, so you get a darker burn.
Yeah.
But some woods, you know, it's like ash, and you can cut into it, and it's like it's all you've done is engraved the ash. There's no burn whatsoever if you get the settings right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you take too long or anything like that, yeah, you'll get overburn. But it's just the inside of the lettering that burns. The overburn is like it's almost like spatter.
Yeah.
And it just a light sanding and poof, it's gone. Anyways, things, let me see. People always ask, how long did it take? I haven't a clue. I did this, you know, one day I'd go in the shop, I'd do 4 hours work, another day I'd go in and I'm working from 10 till 10 at night, you know, and it was like straight through. And I wasn't keeping track of the hours or anything like that, so I have no idea. Total cost? Once again, I have no idea. The hardware and everything else came to just short of $1,000. Unbelievable. I know, it's like, you know, but those little screws really come to a lot, you know. And then, you know.
But that's still less, you did how many boxes?
160. Yeah,
That's $10 a box.
yeah,
For hardware.
yeah, yeah.
It's a lot.
But it adds up, yeah. Anyway, so that total cost per box, I figure approximately $50 a box.
Wow.
That's with my labor, you know. But I'm blue skying it. That's just an estimate, you know. And based on my boxes I was making before, I was estimating 35 a box. But you know, for my purposes, it doesn't really matter how much they came to because, you know, I'm making them for myself.
But these were made for a client, right?
Yeah, I was the client.
Oh, you were the client?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, here it comes, was it worth it? And the thing is, yeah, it's worth it. It's worth this amount of work and everything else, and the whole investment in time and effort and everything else, if you're doing it for yourself. I don't know that I would do this for a client.
I was gonna say, because that has, if it's costing you $50 a box.
Yeah,
And let's say, on the next time you did it, you fine-tuned a few processes and got it down to 35 or 40.
yeah,
You still gotta sell it for 150,
Yeah.
or it's not worth doing it.
exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, it's like, this kind of project is like, you know, it's gotta be something you really believe in, you know, and you have an end purpose, and I really think it's gotta be for yourself, because otherwise, you know, we have another friend of ours who's in a similar business to us. He does whiskey shows as well, And during the pandemic, he did the same thing we did. He was doing video online type things. And he ordered boxes made of solid bamboo, this by that, lined with foam, with cutouts for the individual bottles and everything else, and a whole bit. Beautiful hardware, lasered top and everything else, the whole bit. And I think he was spending like $25 a box. And I'm like,
Depends on how you buy the materials. Yeah.
kidding me?
But Charles, maybe, I find the whole pricing of woodworking like a fascinating subject in itself. I find, my impression is that many woodworkers, I mean, this is just impressions built up over the years and more recently through social media, are inclined to underprice. And my inclination is to always ask for more, because you can always come down, you can never go up.
Yeah.
So I would, like $250 a box.
Yeah.
If the client blinks, you know you got the right price.
Yeah, yeah,
If they fall on the floor, you're a bit high.
yeah.
If they say, like, that was the rule of thumb years ago when I wrote speeches for a living.
Yeah.
If they, if you name a price and they blink, you
Yeah.
probably got the right number.
Mm.
Right?
Yeah. Anyways, things I learned. I think I've already mentioned it. Blue tape. Blue tape is your friend. Blue tape does so many things. And like I said, I went through 8 rolls of blue tape for this project. So, and sand the inside of those rolls, because otherwise you're pulling it over your hands and everything else is really going to bother you. Jigs. Jigs are your friend. Jigs are just, they're just, you can do things repeatably, you can go back to it. And the thing is, I find, even if you take like 2 hours to make a jig and you're only spending half an hour on the job itself, it still pays off, It's just, you know that whatever you're making is going to turn out right. You're not, winging it or anything like that. The jig is going to make it correct, But if you're doing a couple of hundred of something and everything else, no, go for a jig, make a jig. There's never only one way to do something. Cutting the angle on the bandsaw. I tried the first thing I tried was the compound miter saw. I set up a jig on the miter saw, set the angle on the saw and everything else, and cut through it. I didn't like the end result though. It was taking off too much wood. The cut was nice and clean. It was taking off too much wood, and the box didn't feel right. It was just kind of, I was worried if I kept doing that 160 times, one time something was going to happen bad. And the other thing is, when you're cutting at an angle like that with the saw, part of the box is sitting on top of the blade while the blade's still going. And it just wasn't good. But, which is not to say you couldn't do that. If you don't have a bandsaw and all you've got is a sliding compound miter saw, hey, go for it, figure out something. There's always something, another way of doing things. Or like I said, I tried the router table, which should have been, the perfect answer for trimming off all those oversized edges, And I suppose it could be made to work. It just didn't in my case, So there's always something, You don't need a CNC or a, whatever. Just use whatever you've got,
Where did you get the screws and the hinges?
Right here. And then the last thing, and I've already said this one too, repetition. Repeat after me, repetition is dangerous. Okay, always be careful. It's best to, like whenever you're doing any operation and you're doing like, this many of them, even if you're just sitting down doing innocuous stuff like screwing in 1,600 screws, take a break, stand up, stretch, look around, count your fingers, Yep, exactly, yeah. And that's about it. I'm trying to make this like not here, this is what I did, but like just make points that it doesn't matter how big your shop is or how small it is, you can do different things and everything else, and there's different ways to do it, and there's reasons to take on a project like this, if you have them. And if you have any questions.
And what's the CNC machine, the brand or, and the size?
The one I have is called Onefinity, and it's the X50 model, which is slightly thicker rails, and it's got a 32-inch by 32-inch bed, and it's got a 5-inch Z height, which means it'll go from the bottom of its movement to the top 5 inches. So you can do something 5 inches thick and work on it.
They're made in Toronto.
And they're made in Toronto. Yeah.
How do you
Which
handle
is-
the dust out of the CNC?
I have a tiny little rigid vacuum cleaner, and it hooks up, and then I've got a special dust boot that clips onto the end magnets, and it works.
One of those hairy boots that goes around the cutter head?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, like a brush.
yeah.
And it's clean.
And it's, you know, I keep reading about, you know, people keep telling me, and I was like, oh, you know, you need a bigger whatever, but there. See, and my,
Yeah.
this hose goes like that. It's on a swivel like this, so it'll follow it around and everything. And then the hose goes down, and my vacuum cleaner is in the other room, in the back, in a cabinet, so I don't have to listen to it.
But it did a good job of controlling the amount of dust.
Yeah, it's you know, like for all the complaints I've heard for, you know, you need a bigger dust thing, blah, 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 I find it works really, really well.
We have an enclosure for that too.
Yeah, actually, the reason for the enclosure is, you know, you don't really need one, but in my case I did, because my shop is in a garage, and my shop is half of the garage. The other half of the garage is not heated. Actually, this half isn't heated either, but I've got a fireplace in there, so I get warmth in there. But I don't have enough to heat the whole thing. And then I've got this wall here, and I didn't have any room to put this massive machine. As it is, all of my tools are on wheels, so if I, you know, whenever I've got to do something on the table saw or whatever, everything, this goes over here, the jointer gets pushed over there, and, you know, the whole bit. So there was just no way I was gonna come up with something that was like for a 48 by 48 footprint. So I put it in the wall, but then if I just left it there without an enclosure, I'm heating the garage, right? So I enclosed it and everything else, and threw in some drawers and odds and ends and everything else. I will do a presentation one day on my CNC. It's a really cool subject, and this is a really cool machine. It's really, really something. But that'll be for another time.
And the way you've got it set up, just so everyone knows, is really cool too, with it basically being a bump out of your shop.
Yeah,
Good idea.
yeah.
How long you figure it took you to program it?
To do the programming for this,
Yeah,
actually it took me about maybe an hour and a half.
that's it?
Yeah. Although I did have my wife's help.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. One of the things I can say about CNC programming, especially if you're using Vectric, which is the program that I use, is if you've got any computer experience with Photoshop, you know, anything like that, you know, like any of the graphic work on computers and that, you'll find this super simple. It's like between woodworking and that, they go really well together. Most of the commands and everything else are really quite similar. However, if you are like me and know absolutely sweet mothery all about, you know, computers and programs and stuff like that, it's a steep learning curve. It's really steep.
Did the program work first time, or did you have to retool it at all, like the,
No, it's
Straight
bang,
up?
plug and play.
and it was perfect?
Oh, yeah,
Wow.
yep. Yeah, it's really sweet. It's something to see.
I mean, software came with the CNC or it was separate,
No, it's separate.
but it's compatible?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. The programming, you buy the program and it comes with, I can't, what do you call the list of machines and everything else?
G-code. Yeah, the G-code encoder. It comes
Yeah.
with hundreds.
Yeah, anyways, you get the program, you take it, you download it on your computer, and then you press, and it says, what machine do you have? And you press the blank, and this list of, they all come up alphabetically, so you go all the way
When
down
you
to
say
the
machine, you mean router?
The CNC.
Oh, the CNC.
Yeah, the
Oh, you're
CNC
talking
itself.
Software, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
And it's just buy the software once, not a subscription model?
There's different kinds. The
But
Vectric one,
yours-
you buy it and it's yours,
Cool.
right? There's other ones where you know, like you sign up and you get it for a year and then unless you renew, yeah.
If I can just elaborate on that, there's two main brands of software for this class. We're not talking production professional here. Vectric is buy once, and then if you want to get the upgrades when they release them, that's fine. And then the other one, whose name I can't remember,
Carveco.
is, yeah, got it, right, is basically leased.
Cool.
Yeah, it's
Like
a
Microsoft.
subscription,
Yeah,
yeah,
Annual lease.
exactly.
yeah. Which is, I don't know. Like it's a mix, you know, it's like, you know, Carveco constantly improves their stuff and everything else, so as you're paying your subscription, you know, you're giving them money to use to improve their stuff, if you look at it that way. But the flip side of it is you're paying the money, and if you stop paying the money, you're out.
Both companies are based in the UK, by the way.
Yeah. Whereas Vectric, yeah, you buy it, you know, there's people still running, you know, like 3, 4, you know, Vectric's modifications ago, still running on, I mean, still works, still does the job and everything else, it just doesn't have the bells and whistles and the like, you know, but doesn't have to be updated or anything.
How much wood did it take, you said?
Sorry?
How much wood did you buy? Was it board feet, or how much did you?
Oh, in board feet? Oh, jeez. I can't remember because I did it, originally we were going to do 120 boxes.
Oh, okay.
So I bought I overbought lumber for that, and then my wife said, no, we're gonna get some, you know, so we went to 160 instead, so I went back and just got a whole bunch more to make up the difference, and then a whole bunch more because I always like, you know, hey, the pocketbook's been opened. There's never anything wrong with having some extra lumber lying around the shop, you know, it's, yeah, so I really don't know how much I bought in total,
No worries.
yeah.
Did you get any feedback from people that would tell you whether you needed to do any finishing?
No.
Like it didn't matter?
No.
So
Everybody, we got about, maybe 30 to 30 some odd comments, and every one of them was like, beautiful, beautiful box, love it, you know, just thank you so much for doing this, et cetera, et cetera. The only other comments people made were, some people were commenting that when they opened the box, the bottles fell out, which, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, okay. Anyways, all I can say is next year, we're not doing this.
Or deeper hole.
Or deeper hole, you know, don't know. The reason the holes are this deep is because, you know, the whole idea behind this, I'm advertising my other business, but the label has a QR code on it. So what happens is you pull out a bottle and you flash on the QR code, and it takes you to a video of an interview between like one of us or one of our friends interviewing the guy who made it.
Very cool.
So you're sitting there drinking a sample of something while, you know, well, 15 years ago, when I put this in a bottle, I was thinking.
Charles, I'm just thinking out loud here as an idea for the next iteration. You know, remember back in the day when before, you know, cardboard and plastic and all that shit, and you got a set of tools, like let's say a set of drill bits or a set of transfer punches, say, you know, a wooden box with a matching top.
Yeah.
So you'd have your 12 holes in the bottom box,
Mm-hmm.
deeper probably than those holes, and another, a loose fit, or maybe with a rabbet, that so the two halves of the box go together. I'm thinking it would eliminate the hardware,
Yeah.
right? Eliminates that angle cut.
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's a few aggravating issues
Yeah.
that get eliminated.
Well, the whole purpose of this was, you know, the initial idea was I wanted a plinth. I wanted a display, you know,
Yeah.
of the bottles. this whole opening business and everything else got added afterwards,
Oh, I see.
right? So initially, it was just supposed to be this, and there was gonna be a lid that went down. But it was just coming up with a lid that went down and held the bottles in place while it was being shipped. You know, that's what this sponge on the top is for, is so,
I get it.
you know, get the rattle and
But
shake.
these,
and
this type of box that I'm talking about would do exactly the same thing, and maybe the lid stays onto the base with a couple of small magnets or something.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the problem? Were these gift boxes you were selling for to people, or?
It's an online tasting.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so the ones we were doing before, we were doing them live. Like we would send out the kits and everything, and people would get the kits, and they would be sitting there, and at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, whatever, we would be interviewing on Zoom live, you know, a distiller in Scotland, in India, in Japan, in wherever the stuff was from. And it worked really, really well, but it's an awful lot of work.
Yeah.
And it was just, you know, trying to coordinate everything and, you know, waking people up at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, that kind of thing. It was, yeah, anyways, so we just decided this time we're just gonna do recordings. So we did the same, basically the same thing on Zoom again, but we just recorded them. And you can do this next week, next month, whenever. The videos will stay up for a year, you know, so. But,
So every one of your samples has a corresponding video interview?
Yep,
That's
Sweet. Wow.
yeah.
Sweet.
No,
That's like
it's-
a gift I could buy, like my father-in-law or something like that was the concept.
Awesome.
Exactly, exactly, yeah. And there's some, well, this one here is like, this one's a dummy. It's actually whiskey in there, but it's not the whiskeys that we sent out. But one of the whiskeys we sent out was a Highland Park 33-year-old. Bottle sells for about $3,000 some odd dollars. Another one was a 21-year-old Irish whiskey, Dunhills. And that goes for about $400 and some odd dollars. And there were a few like, holy, you know. Anyways, yeah. So anyways, that's what I do.
Great.
Thanks, guys. So we'll take a little break. There's some free books there, by the way, if anybody would
Yeah.
like them.
Oh, sorry, people, I've gone way
Oh,
over.
you're good,
eh?
no, it's
Yeah.
good.
Before we break, there's just one quick shout out to people who have maybe encountered her at Rustfest or
Oh, yeah.
the woodworking show that we had. Just to let you know that Linda Manser is now named to the Order of Canada.
Oh, nice.
And
Yeah,
not just to the Order of Canada, she was awarded the middle level. Almost no one gets the middle level on the first
Yeah,
pass.
so, great.
She is one of the premier, probably the premier guitar builder in the
oh,
world.
yeah.
She is amazing.
Yeah. And it's
Has anybody been to the Group of Seven guitars?
No, it's on the bucket list.
If you go to, it was at the McMichael in Toronto. It is a must-see, 100%. The workmanship is, yeah, it's amazing.
Gary, when was it?
14.
No.
Oh, that,
Six.
oh, yeah, even
Was
there,
it,
yeah.
2014?
was it 2014?
The big one.
Who was there?
With Linda Manser.
Who was there?
With Linda Manser.
With Linda Manser and Garrett Hack and George
2014.
Schwartz and what a gang of people.
It was
You know. Anyway,
phenomenal.
we made a pile of money on that conference. And at the time, a decision was made to hold that money separate from the OWA in a separate account for a rainy day. The rainy day never came. We didn't, and now mind you, I will apologize, we didn't invest it overly wisely, but leave that as it may. The idea was that in case the OWA ever needed to be bailed out, or if we ever wanted to repeat Woodworks, which we tried to do and it never took, or whatever we might want to do, we had a nest egg. Because when we did woodworks, we didn't have anything to start with. So here's $6,100 for you. So now the money has been transferred from the separate woodworks account,
Yeah.
which we have maintained all these years, over to the
Into
OWA
John's
account.
wallet.
Yeah, buy his
So what we're gonna do is we will be setting up a separate savings account for that money. And we're gonna be talking about, amongst you guys, about how that should be dealt with. Should we just keep it invested for a while, maybe do another woodworks? Maybe do something else, but we wanna get some feedback from you guys on it because it's your club. Okay. I think we have, oh, by the way, before I forget, if anybody else wants to pay dues tonight, come and talk to me. Okay, come and talk to me. And I think we have a couple of presentations, at least one. Who wants to do who wants to do a show and tell?
I have a show and tell, it's not really a presentation.
Oh, just show and tell, perfect, that's exactly. That's good, let's go.
I was gonna just do it right here, you want to
Sure.
gather around and have a look? Like everybody, I've had trouble with miters over the course of my career, so I wanted to build some jewelry boxes for my grandchild and 2 daughters and wife and whatnot. So I saw Michael Pekovic's dedicated sled for doing cross-cut joinery, miter joinery. So I decided, well, I'll build it and give it a try and just see how it works. And I have to say, it worked fabulously. Right out of the chute, you can get a perfect miter cut with the stops set up for the distance for the 2 sides that you want to do it on. So this sort of flops. So you can cut one end, then cut the other, lift this up, cut the other one. So if you start with a piece of lumber that, is whatever size you want, I think that's 4.5 inches, you can grain wrap it all the way around because you can cut all 4 sides off of the same board. You do have to kind of turn it over to cut the cut off the miter. When you cut the first one, then you've got to turn it around and start again to make them all come together. I'm not explaining it very well, but most of you probably know.
Yeah.
But what I was impressed with was how repeatable it was and how accurate it was. Just amazing. All those boxes and all those corners didn't have to have anything done to them, and with some blue tape, there's our blue tape expert, with some blue tape to hold it together, incredible. So I would strongly recommend, if you really want to do miter boxes, this makes life really, really simple rather than trying to do it with a stop block on a sled on a table saw.
Not just that, but that's a pretty good use for my crappy miter.
Yeah, that's about all they're good for, right?
Yeah, I know, exactly,
That's right.
yeah.
Go to Busy Bee and buy a couple of them and
Now,
use them up.
you did it with 2 miter gauges. Could it also just be done with runners?
I guess you could, yeah.
Is there a
I just
reason-
did it
is
the
it-
way Michael Pekovic
Oh, okay.
recommended, but I could use blue runners.
You're
The
never gonna
runners
turn
thing
it.
is maybe
Like that,
short,
you're never
maybe
gonna
it
turn it.
doesn't.
That's what I'm saying, you're not gonna turn it, so, yeah.
Well, you can
I
make
did-
adjustments.
The one I did was with runners,
Yeah,
and I made the runners a little longer. I can get, once you get that 45 set properly, you can just run the boxes.
yeah.
And with
Yeah.
all due deference to you, Brian, I didn't use a miter jack.
You didn't use a miter jack and a hand plane after?
No, I didn't have to do that. I did not have to do that.
If you can get your miters that good, then my hat's off to you. 'cause-
Well, that's what these are. They come
Yeah,
out
yeah,
that good, you
no.
don't
No,
need to use a
Well,
shoe
the other,
block
I
to
mean,
miter them, yeah. It's
the other
amazing.
interesting thing I've discovered, that if you want a dead nuts miter off the table saw, the tilt box is your friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that spells the
They're
difference
sweet.
between 44.8
Yep.
and 45.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it matters.
Yep,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
Dead on.
And if you want to
When we
cheat,
first started carrying the tilt box, John Wilson, who was working here at the time, and I tested it in the shop here. And John, who, if you want a machine set up accurately, John was your man, right? I mean, he'd take half the day and it would be dead nuts on. And I went in, I was out doing something, helping a customer, and I went back in, I said, how you making out? And he said, I'm fucking pissed off, he said. Why is that? I said, what's wrong with the tilt box? Nothing wrong with the tilt box, he says. The table saw's at 89.8. Not the table saw, the jointer fence is at 89.8, and it's been like that for 4 years.
What magazine were you looking at this?
Tools and Shops. It's the addendum from Applied Woodworking.
Is that the current one?
I get it mailed to me
What
every
year is that
year.
one?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's a special yearly
So-
issue, isn't it?
Yeah.
The way I've done the
286.
286.
286, oh, that's an oldie.